session now. This is an industry panel, and we've got four distinguished members of the panel joining us. All of them made it on time. I know some of them had to squeeze in some other things to make this one work. So I appreciate that very much, Kenneth. So we've got four. I will introduce them very quickly, and when they get a chance, they will say more about their roles, seeing where they are. I am joined here with Dr. Jennifer Henrichsen, who is going to be moderating this with me for those of you who are online. She's a professor of communication at the Morrow College, so if I do anything wrong, then I would get a real-time feedback right there on how to conduct this. So I appreciate very much you joining. We are towards the end of our workshop here, and it would be very valuable to hear from you about your experiences, and that's the purpose of this industry panel. Some of you have joined us before. So for the purpose of the students here, we've got four panelists. Nathan Keep, he is a senior engineer with SEL, but not in the Pullman area, and he will correct me if I'm wrong, but he will say something more later on. We also have Dr. Laurent Nigilia. He is a senior research electronics engineer with the Air Force Research Lab. And if I'm not mistaken, it most likely is in Rome, New York. He will correct me if I'm wrong when he gets a chance to introduce himself. Slater Weinstock is our third panelist. He is at WSU Coug. He was before some company that was local, but now he's a senior security engineer with Amazon. And we finally have Kenneth Ebersole, who is a CEO and co-founder of a new company called Ops Companion, and he will say something more about what he does. These are our panelists. They would tell us things, and we have told them about the kind of questions that come to your mind. What I would do before I let other questions come from Jen is for each of you to go quickly to tell us about your current role and where you are. And there will be further questions later on. So you can take a minute or two to introduce yourselves and your role. So I'm going to start with Nathan since I called you first. Go ahead, Nathan, please.
Okay, I hope you all can hear me. My name is Nathan Kipp. I work for CySER Engineering Laboratories, who's headquartered there in Pullman. I've been with SEL for a little over 18 years now. I started at SEL. Well, I first heard about SEL as a student at WSU. Go Cougs. I took a senior engineering class there as I was in a computer engineering program. And in that senior engineering project class, we got to go to Schweitzer, take a tour. I met Ed. He's the one who personally gave us the tour himself, and he sold the company, right? And from that day on, I knew I wanted to work at a company like SEL. It wasn't until after grad school that I got there, though. And my first position at SEL was as an application engineer. So I was helping with post-sale support for products, right? Customers had already decided they wanted the product, they'd already purchased it, and now they're working with it in their labs in the field. And so it was my job to help them out, make sure they got the products working in fashion suitable for them. My focus at the time was on our cybersecurity products. So pretty much my entire career has been cybersecurity related. My third day on the job at SEL, the U.S. NERC SIP regulations went into effect. That's the National Energy Regulatory Commission's critical infrastructure protection standards went into effect. And so, for my entire career, from the third day in, I've had to deal with national regulations regarding cybersecurity. After application engineering for a while, I went on to product engineering. So instead of working with the field after products have been developed, now I'm on the front end of products, helping them be designed, helping build the security requirements for them, the use case requirements, and all that stuff. Did that for a few years also at SEL, also around, that was more around networking gear instead of cybersecurity specific, but it was networking related. After that, I moved into a product management role, where I was helping the company develop our first cloud-based services. Did that for 5 years. And for the past 2 years now, I've been in a role where I am, again, focused on regulations and helping out R&D to build their processes around newer regulations that we have to comply with as a vendor. Everything up until the past couple of years has been focused on regulations that our customers have to comply with. Now, because of the European Union's Cyber Resilience Act, we as a vendor need to start complying with specific regulations. So we're building our processes around that, and that is my current position.
Thank you very much, Nathan. I'll go to Dr. Laurent Nichila next, if you may introduce yourself and your current role.
Oh. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Laurent Gila. I'm a senior research electronic engineer at the Air Force Research Lab in, as you mentioned earlier, upstate New York, so precisely in Rome. I wish it can be Rome, Italy, to be the neighbor of the Pope. But anyway, we'll take it. But it's very cold over here, but for now it's summer. So what can I say? The funny accent is coming straight from West Africa in Cameroon. So that's where I'm originally from. So came to the US and got a master's degree in computer architecture. So, and from there, got my PhD in electrical engineering. And when it comes to work and professional experience, I start in the US at the Kimberly-Clark Corporation. I'm sure everybody knows about the Cottonelle, all the tissue paper. So as an IT analyst, and while doing it, and you kind of realize that, okay, you have some free time, so why not see what can you do? And next thing I know, the outsourcing came. I was the interface between the Kimberly-Clark company and the outsource company in India. Next thing I know, the job ended. So how do I revamp myself? So I got a position as a local government in Miami Beach, because back then everybody think, oh, Miami Beach is so cool. So yeah, so let's move to Florida. Either way, so I went to Miami Beach. I was a senior system analyst. And while doing it, you really realize that, okay, you're not using most of your brain because you have to support a couple of applications, and then you just have to make sure it runs properly, and then it collects all the funding, the money, everything else. So then kind of like, okay, why shouldn't I register and go for a PhD? So that's how things move along. Next thing I know, go for a PhD as a full-time student. So it wasn't easy, but the background that I had in computer science and computer engineering master program, so it was, I think it would have been better to get the PhD in something a little different, to make it look like, you're doing something different. So that's the reason of electrical engineering, because it was done on purpose, because I didn't just want to say, okay, everything is computer engineering. So kind of see what is out there for me. And why cybersecurity? I would say the curiosity. And as a system analyst at the city of Miami Beach, you kind of dealing with some of the issue you have, not hacking per se, but it's kind of interesting when you're having conversation with system administrator, database administrator, and see what is not going right. So that's how I move on into cyber. And the good thing is when it comes to cyber security, you have the good guy and the hacker. So it's a competition who is up and down. So it looks like a doctor-patient business. So you're always going to have some system hacked, and you always have to figure out a way to defend, to protect it. So it's going to be an up and down. So it's a game of chicken and roost. So that's how I'm like, okay, if I'm into cybersecurity, definitely I will always have a job. So that's the mindset. Nothing says it always has to be true. So after my PhD, the choice was kind of where should I go? So the target was the Department of Defense for some obvious wrong reason, because I will have to say it that way, which is, oh, Department of Defense has a lot of money. So for sure, that's we can all agree, because you may not even know the budget of it, but let's leave it like that. So if I have to do research at the DoD, definitely I won't be having issue getting funding. So that's how I have a friend and a colleague after who's there. I got an internship at Rome Lab. So that's how, during my internship, 10 weeks. So I had to prove myself that I'm worth it for them to call me back or at least have an interview. So I can tell as a student, to me was in 10 weeks, I need to publish a conference paper. So that was my objective, because that was the only way or the best way for me to sell myself. So, and it did work, because during the interview or the exchange with the branch chief, it was like, oh, they're telling me you finish, you have a paper almost ready. I'm like, yeah, I need to showcase that, I belong here. So by the time I was leaving the 10 weeks internship, the summer internship at Rome Lab, I was coming back for what you usually call the interview, but my interview was just a conversation, because the branch chief was the one interviewing me. So he's like, I already know your achievement. I see what you can do. And then that's how it went. So I've been there for since 2015. So 10 year plus now. Doing what? Cybersecurity, cyber defense, cyber operation. We are not going to talk about cyber operation. And research, program management, because in order to really be in there, you need to touch base all those. So I've managed program millions of dollars, just and to make sure you have the acquisition, transition, all those in cyber security. By cyber security, I would say touch base, blockchain technology, wireless communication, telecommunication, and see how applying game theory in order to see some mechanism design, how the interaction between defensive and offense hacking, kind of how to look at the robustness when it comes to hardware security. And the reason being, as a cyber, you need to really be upfront, out there, the cutting edge, and see exactly how things are going. So let me stop right here for now. I hope I didn't take too much time.
Yeah, thank you so much. We will circle back with some more detailed questions later on, but thanks for the introduction. Slater, I'll go next to you. If you can go. Kenneth, I'm saving you for last.
Cool. So I started out with a degree in chemistry. So went to WSU, go Coug. So got a degree in chemistry, did some research both in enzymology and also immunology. Got interested in some languages, primarily for a lot of computational type stuff. You're using Python and Fortran. So went to school, got a degree in computer science, and well, CPTS 121, I despised coding. I hated it. I was like, yeah, screw this. I'm never doing this again. Like, give up. But kept at it. And to be honest, I mean, cybersecurity was just fun, right? Like to tell someone you're a hacker. I hate to be like crass, but it's a great pickup line, right? Like, hey, I'm a hacker. That just sounds really cool. Great way to like get people to start talking to you. So that got me into cybersecurity. But I did 4 years of offensive security consulting, primarily with Fortune 100 companies. So working with the likes of like Meta and Microsoft. on a number of products, some products of which you use, some products of which you power the backend, some products which you haven't used. Got worked on a lot of different projects, web applications, did a lot of mobile application security, got really interested into WebRTC protocols, real-time communication, state management, so how protocol states are handled, abuse of protocol states. So if you remember that signal bug from a long time ago where you establish a P2P connection and you say, hey, accept the call effectively, and then you have a like nice listening device on your phone or anything like that, that type of stuff really interested me. So I did some research in that, and then I've been at Amazon for the last 2.5 years, both in an application security role and also a security tooling development role. So right now, more of, I guess you could call it like a secure or software engineer flavored security engineer, or a mix of the two. So my day-to-day now is primarily coding and product development, and specifically in the cybersecurity space. Yeah. I guess that's a good quick introduction.
Thank you so much, Slater, for that one. Kenneth, how about you?
All right. Yeah, pleasure to be here, everyone. Graduated in 2019. Super excited. So I spent the first part of my kind of early career working at startups, doing not front-end development, which for those of you who join a startup that don't do front-end development, which means you'll do reliability and security and compliance, and all of that. It was an incredible experience, and if you have the chance to do it, I highly recommend it. And yeah, many times I was both defensively protecting our systems and scaling them at the same time wherever I could. The cool part about my career is I then joined Cloudflare as a SRE, or a site reliability engineer. I was there for almost 4 years doing that. For those of you who don't know what that role really is, I kind of joke, but it's kind of the shepherd of production. If cybersecurity is, hey, how do we come in and be the vet and make sure the servers are healthy and not under attack, and the application developers want to write crap code and push it out to the world, you have to find the through ground and figure out where the reality and the end user is not impacted with all of that. One of the largest parts of my job there was running our logging platform and running the kind of capital expenditure of scaling out our platforms. And kind of one cool part about the first part is when you operate at scale, cybersecurity becomes incredibly difficult because of volumes you're operating at. So you have to have really unique and powerful approaches. And then the other part about that role, about understanding the hardware and procuring hardware for Cloudflare, was many people probably associate hacking and things like that to cybersecurity, and it is a heck of a story at times. Supply chain is actually a bigger part of this, where and infiltrating things and where things are built, how they're built, kind of the whole story of how software works. And everyone on the call probably deeply understands this, but we stand on the back of many giants in the software field. There's a million pieces of software that make the software that we make run, and it's kind of a wild battle to do that. In the fall, I recently left Cloudflare from the R&D team to start my own company, where we were focused on building a zero trust control plane for AI agents. And the reason why I'm really excited to be here is because agents do throw a pretty large wrinkle in what cybersecurity and reliability and kind of all of it have. These things touch things, and at the end of the day, you have to worry about compliance, as Nathan has to deal with all the time. And agents need to know, and they have to abide by that. And at the other end, you have Slater probably dealing with application code written by AI agents, creative a bunch of stuff. And it's a really fascinating time to see these things get deployed. And lastly, I sit on the board of the School of EUCS, so love to talk to any of you and support students. And I'm on campus 2 times a year, so reach out in any way I can.
Wonderful. So we'll have some follow-up questions. I will have my own to come back later on, but I'll let Jen, you've got the microphone, so you are good to go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, All right, awesome. Well, you guys answered our first question in the intro. So I'm going to ask our second question, which is what would be some advice you'd give to someone who is just getting started in the cybersecurity field? And Nathan, why don't we start with you?
Sure. First piece of advice is talk to everybody. Don't be afraid to go out there. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, One of the most important things our company realizes for cybersecurity is partnerships and communications. Right? If we're not talking to people, if we're not sharing information, we don't know what's going on in the world, and we don't know necessarily how the best way for our company to react to it or to guide our customers to react to it is. Right? So talking and discussing all the time is really important. Also, a great way to get with networking, right? So if you go to conferences, if you get on webinars, if you just learn to meet people and get your name out there, that's going to give you a whole lot more possibility for growing your own skill sets, growing for your knowledge base, and finding new companies, new positions to work in.
Great. Thank you so much. Why don't we go to Dr. Laurent?
Yes, I would say depending what exactly you already know. So if you, let's say you're a beginner, so as Nathan mentioned, you need to talk to your classmates. Let's stop the engineering position where you think that you sit by yourself and then you put your hand like this and then you're going to do it all alone. No, by exchanging, you will get it. And now that we have the internet, so if you say cybersecurity, go there, start reading, do some scripting, do some programming language, because this thing of hearing students telling me that, oh, sir, programming stress me out. I'm like, oh, too bad. If you really want to be a cybersecurity guy, you need to do some programming, you need to do some scripting, however you call it, because you cannot be a technical guy in cybersecurity without, and use your time by, you may not have to do everything from scratch. Get some snippet of code, run it, and then start changing it. That's how you're going to see, oh, this is what it is doing. And then you change it, you learn, you practice on it, you learn, and then you will get there and start by asking questions. Of course, they're gonna help you see what type of problem you need to solve. You need to code. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Yes. How about Slater?
Sprint debugging, that is really useful to understand where things are in memory or what is being processed or what's being validated or where you are and things like that. I think that's useful. Yeah, definitely get comfortable programming. I mean, that's how you learn things. That's how you understand things. I mean, I make decisions every day. I'm sure everyone on this call, we have to make decisions on code. We have to make decisions on blast radius, on impact, on a number of things. And these decisions come with a number of consequences, right? Including, hey, if you bake a certain design in or you bake certain assumptions in, and you do that for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever years, that costs money. That's a whole product that gets thrown out. That I've seen that in the past when I was doing OffSec. I've seen products get shut down and things like that. So I would say, like, yeah, you have to get comfortable learning to code. You have to get comfortable understanding like call stack analysis. You have to understand, you have to change things in environments and see what happens. And yeah, I mean, that's the easiest way to learn. And with things like AI or with Gen AI and stuff, the barrier of entry is a lot lower than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So you can spin up environments fairly quickly and play around and see what breaks.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And Kenneth, what do you think?
This is kind of anyone that works in the runtime area of things is get some hardware and build some stuff on it. I think deeply understanding how computers work at a fundamental level is where you find there's like different levels of cybersecurity. There's the 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 traditional, you left the database open type stuff, but some of the more powerful kind of 0 days come from really deep fundamentals in computer science. Like you knew how the call stack worked, as Slater said. And then the other one is around Gen AI. I think there's a lot of really powerful things happening in that space, especially around spinning up agents and having them just bang on software as fast as humanly possible. And I think being very comfortable with that, and using that to kind of a hacker in a box. Maybe it's not a full blown hacker, but a script kiddie in a box, I think is very powerful. And the faster you incorporate that tool into your tool chest, like a terminal or a VS Code level of comfortability, it's a very powerful thing to have at this moment.
That's great. We also want to ask what advice you have for networking in the field of cybersecurity. Nathan, you mentioned when I asked the first question that networking is important, but could you give a little bit more specificity as to maybe how students can network or where they should network or some skills around networking that they should think about?
Yeah, I mean, conferences are a good place to start, although they're not quite as good as they were 10 years ago, right? COVID kind of shut some of that down, and now a lot of things are remote. But still, if you can get to an in-person cybersecurity related conference or a working group, that can be really, really valuable, right? There's a lot of groups in any major city. Pullman might be a little bit difficult to find a group, but from ISC squared, from IEEE, from from SANS. If you can get involved with a community-oriented group or just an information sharing group, that's an amazing way to start networking. Webinars are another option if you can't get someplace or if there's not a group near you. Just start attending webinars. Look for cybersecurity webinars online, register for them, and make sure you follow up somehow, right? Generate a few questions from the webinar, right? Send questions back to the speakers, right? Get them to know your name. Having those questions, having put a little bit of thought into what they say, and showing interest in what they say goes a long ways towards building those longer term relationships. And even if you're looking for a job right now, it doesn't result in an immediate job, right? People in the field already know others. Once somebody knows your name, then they're a lot more willing to pass your name on. So attend is whatever you can. You don't have to have long conversations, but you do need to be able to get your name out there and get somebody to respond. Webinars are a great way to do that.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Dr. Laurent?
It's gonna be a kind of repetitive because I would say, where exactly can you find a conference to attend or a symposium? So usually, if you go online, you have the call for paper, the Wikipedia, and then by just looking at those conferences, you have even IEEE ComSoc for the US, but it's always better where at the symposium, go into symposium, conferences, working group, but where can you find those working groups? So now you will have to start somewhere, and from it, ask the question. I will imagine that if someone was interested into this industry panel, unless you come and talk to the organizer, you will not even know the existence of it. So the best way here is where at the symposium, where at the conference, where to look, and then register. When you get in there, as Nathan mentioned, talk. Do not just think that when they see your face, that's good enough. No, bring up even a problem and ask the question, who can help me solve this? And you go from there. So, and then you tell what you can do, and from it, the exchange. You have to exchange. You cannot sit on your own. You need to develop your own way of collaboration. That will be the best way here. Mm-hmm. One of the best way. Thank you.
Great. So networking at conferences and attending webinars and making sure to bring forward different ideas and questions and discussion and collaboration. Slater, what do you think?
Open source contributions is actually really useful, especially if you find security tooling and stuff like that. find a gap in there, do a commit or something like that, do a PR. Great, you start to get interactions with the builder and maintainers of that. DEF CON, I go to DEF CON. I love going there. I don't actually go much to the conference just because the networking's pretty sluggish. But if you're at a hotel or something like that, you'll see a bunch of different people. It's pretty obvious. Most people are willing to teach. Like, if you're curious, most people are willing to help you. But yeah, an easy barrier of entry, just PRs and stuff like that, and security tooling. It gets you started somewhere and gets you interacting with groups of people.
That's great. And Kenneth?
Yeah, Slater, you kind of take the one I was thinking of. I think I gotta tell a story of what I think is a great way. When I was at Cloudflare, there was this guy that worked as actually a kid. He was 17 years old, working out of the Netherlands, and really good at cybersecurity, and kept issuing bug bounty requests to Cloudflare all the time. And he actually hit a point where every time he'd release, we had a kind of a Google chat thread, because Cloudflare uses Google Chat, which is horrendous. But and every time you come up there, we're like, wow, he did it again. He did it again. He did it again. He did it again. And we're like, when are we hiring this kid? Like, do I have to go quit my job so he has salary to do that? And where that really boils down to is be curious. And like in an age where like Gen AI and like slop is everywhere, like this is like the one moment where you lead with your humanity. And like if you go to a conference, or I was just at a conference in SF, and you just like see someone wearing something, you're like, oh, that's kind of curious, and you have that stupid random thought in your head. You like kind of tell them that, and you lead with the humanity there. And I know at moments it's super difficult. You're like, oh, they're gonna think I'm weird, but it's like they're all at the conference. That's the whole purpose. You're there, like you just got to take the leap of faith. And most of the time, like 99% of the time, not 51%, but 99%, people are very well receptive of that. So the way I would summarize that is lean in to being a human. So like if you're online, like be yourself. Don't try to be a persona. If you're doing PRs, like actually want to solve it and do well there, and contribute around you. And it's not as clean of an answer. It's like, oh, go do this, but all the other folks that they've said are really good. And I just, if you do that, you'll be known. And once you're known, people talk, and the world is a lot smaller than you think.
Great, thanks.
No, I don't know if you had another
I can
question.
ask the last one if
Okay,
you want.
yeah.
Okay, so how can a computer science student get into fields that work with hardware or hardware security? Nathan, do you want to go first?
Let's see. I mean, that's kind of me, but I was really much more oriented towards RTL, which would be more of a hardware-based language than most computer science students. So I was kind of already in that space to begin with. It can be difficult to get working directly with hardware, right? There are options out there for you to just play with at home that are relatively cheap. Raspberry Pis, Banana Pis, right? You can get some of that hardware, but they are also oriented towards general purpose computing. They're all going to be very similar in architecture and have similar issues, right? If we're looking for specifically hardware security and hardware vulnerabilities, general purpose computing is one route to go. You can also start playing with embedded devices, right? There's a lot of very cheap things out there today in the Internet of Things space, right? And that is a great way, especially if you look for Internet of Things devices that are a couple years old, 5 years old, because most of them have very little cybersecurity baked into them. Most of them are rife with vulnerabilities, and it is a great way to start poking at these things. Now, whether the vulnerabilities are in hardware or in firmware or in the software related to them, that depends on what you find. But there's a lot of really cheap stuff out there in the Internet of Things space that is a lot of fun to play with, a lot of fun to poke holes, and a lot of fun to try to break. Now, it doesn't really help you getting into a career, into a company that does this kind of stuff. For getting into a company and doing it as a career, you got to have a little bit of base knowledge. But really, more than that, it's interest, right? Again, going back to networking, get to know people out there, right? You talk to Kenneth, somebody else from CrowdStrike, right? SEL is a customer of CrowdStrike, right? Kenneth may not know us, but somebody else at CrowdStrike does, right? And they'll know SEL and be able to point you back at us or Motorola or somebody else, right? The cybersecurity world, as Kenneth said, is not huge, right? You start talking to one person in one space, they probably know people in that other space, right? So get a little bit of that base background knowledge, which is really not too difficult to start getting there. But then also go back to the networking and leverage it, and make sure you say what you're interested in when you're looking and when you're doing that networking piece. That's really how you start to get those connections that are really going to make a difference in getting you to what you want to do.
That's great. That's very helpful. Thank you. Dr. Laurent, what do you think?
Definitely for a computer science guy, for sure, if it's the same type of computer science I was, you are good at math. So next thing you know, roll your sleeve, you go learn assembly language. So by assembly language here is VHDL or Verilog. So it's not that many. But just the little thing that I start saying, oh, you can just use your C programming and then convert it into assembly code. No, that's not helpful. So pick one of the two, because you will find yourself realizing that it's very, very helpful. And then sit, be patient, because programming, assembly language code, that thing gave me gray hair. So if you expect to just know it, because no, it is not software programming. We're talking hardware here. And then you go from it, and you can get all those cheaper devices today because it doesn't cost much. So you can have a Raspberry Pi. Yes, you can even have FPGA, which is really cheap. We are not expecting you to get the 10,000, 13,000 FPGA. No. And just making sure you send the signal and then you see it. You will realize that that's how all hardware programmer or hardware system learn and then practice. So right there is not just sitting there, expect then you will get the code somewhere. Nobody going to share the code with you. You're going to do it yourself. So get in, roll your sleeve, and then those cheap devices, buy them, connect to it, hardware programming, Verilog, VHDL, either way, do some system programming. Because now everything tends to be, drag and drop. What are you dragging and what are you dropping? So who did that for you? So, but you will have to do it yourself.
Great advice. Thank you. Slater, what do you think?
Get comfortable with reverse engineering with Gidra, Binwalk, Wireshark. To be honest, like I don't know if I have seen a lot of careers, and this is just my opinion. I have not seen a lot of careers where they just market like, hey, hardware security engineer, actively searching. Like it's more of a niche space. So you're going to, I would go back to networking, like connect with people on LinkedIn. To be honest, just send connections. If you see someone that's doing things, you hear someone on a podcast. I mean, I've connected with a number of like podcast people where I'm like, oh, cool, they accepted me. I'm gonna message them, and most of them get back. Hardware Hacking Village at DEF CON, you can do like vehicle hacking and things of that sort. It's kind of fun. It dips your toes in the water. You get to mess around with things and see things in real life. They have maritime hiking and things like that. I mean, I would say try that out first and just play around with it. IoT devices, you can get a lot of things for like 10, 15, 20 bucks on eBay or Amazon, refurbished. There, that's another good place to get stuff.
That's great. Lots of opportunity, it sounds like there. And Kenneth, what do you think?
It's a great question. So I think a lot of people just computers are everywhere, and we haven't magically made different computers for hardware or different computers for cars or different computers for IoT devices, especially now that Linux kind of powers the entire world. I say this because I highly recommend, like, just to get good at being a good fundamental computer scientist, to probably get like a home lab, because you have networking equipment. You have to understand that TCP, IP, UDP, all that is pretty much all what we talk to between systems. I mean, there's some serial stuff in the world, but most things that we interact with in a day to day are going to be very in that same bucket of things. And having a home lab is a kind of a twofold thing. Is the first part is you can get a lot of stuff for free and you can run a lot of open source stuff and save some money. But then the flip side is you actually learn how a lot of this works. And once you learn how it works and how it talks to each other and how all that, you very quickly can poke at it, and you're kind of on the hook to fix it. And um when you break things, which I highly recommend you do, don't be afraid to break things and put them back together. That's what I've learned the most. So when people are like, I would recommend, yeah, go buy the cheap thing online. It's not, to me, the way I hear with that, and the way I think all of you should hear is, don't buy it cheap because it's easy access to. Is it's when you fry it, you're like, dang, there's $20 going down the road. But be really comfortable just tinkering with this stuff, because um that's really when you learn it. The hardware field is really, it's marketed very fascinatingly, but it's really, they're just computers at the end of the day. So go learn. You have to learn the fundamentals really well.
That's great advice. Thanks.
So there's one thing that came up several times, I think. Kenneth, you actually started with it, and I wanted to ask about how AI is changing things. And I don't mean this in a superficial way, but maybe reflect on the cybersecurity implications of it. So we had a session yesterday on agentic AI. I know, Kenneth, your company is primarily around it. Nathan, maybe you can comment on how your industry has changed, what industrial control systems used to be and how they are now. And so you don't necessarily have to, kind of repeat what one of you may say and so on, but in each one of your areas, think about it and kind of reflect on what the implications of AI would be, including the barrier for entry for learning and things like that. So since I called your name, Kenneth, I'm going to start with you and talk about what the implications of it may be, and then I'll come back to others.
Yeah. So when I worked at Cloudflare, I worked at scale. For context, we were operating at one moment we were dealing with like 35 million logs a second on my team. And I bring this up because we are all good as a collective. We're all like ubiquitously can say like we're pretty terrible with very large numbers. We can't see billions and billions and imagine billions and billions of anything. Where AI is completely upending in some areas of cybersecurity is a lot of cybersecurity has been security by obscurity, and a lot of it has been, well, they don't care about me. I'm a small company. Like they go after the DoD, they go after the governments of the world. Um, and a lot of people don't realize that I kind of touched on it, that software is actually just a collection of thousands of little packages that are maintained by one or two people in the world. And we don't support them well enough. And where AI is completely disrupting that is that it's not hard anymore to spin up a little script kit, and what I mean by that is something that makes scripts really fast to put bang on something. And the scripts are not very complicated. They can be, but just the fact that them can do a lot we're not talking about sophisticated hacking. You can do some really interesting stuff with Deidre and kind of having computer use agents with Kali Linux and that. But even the simple stuff of figuring out any sort of not updated package or anything like that is now at scale. And it's completely shifted a lot of things. And then the speed, which is a big part. I don't think people understand that what agents are doing to all of software is we cranked everything up to like 15 if it's out of 10 for speed. And what I mean by that is for the cybersecurity aspect of things, people are figuring out how to do supply chain hacks. And then the common pattern was, we'll just update everything when the package comes out. And by the time we figure out, oh, that package actually is completely infected, I've upgraded everything, and now millions of people have been infected by it, by that particular thing. This is an incredible moment of opportunity for folks about to enter the industry, because I would say if you went back 3 or 4 years, people in a bad way and a good way, they were stuck in their ways of these are the tools we use, this is the methodology we use, this is the I think everyone on the call has definitely been on the end of this is, well, the business wants to do this, the cost is this, and this is what we need to do for cybersecurity over here. And there's an ocean of arguments between the two, and the business wins or the organization wins from a cost perspective. When I go talk to people right now, cybersecurity is one of the most important things they're worried about because of AI. It touches things. It doesn't have identities. It breaks things. It's completely revolutionizing how we write software, which means every little thing is all over the place. You kind of have to approach it from a fresh set of eyes, and don't, if you approach it with fresh eyes with the fundamentals, like we didn't change computers, we still use von Neumann ways of computing and things like that. Like that's pretty common. So the point is, like, it is in the runtime, I heard a principal engineer at Cloudflare say before I left, nothing is sacred anymore. And the cool part is, like, that's an incredible learning opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Kenneth. I'll go to you, Nathan. How is AI changing cybersecurity in your space, industrial control systems?
AI is both the most exciting thing that has happened in my career and the most terrifying. It is enabling the bad guys to do so much more, so faster, that I honestly don't know how my industry is going to respond yet. So SEO primarily works within the utility space, within electric utilities. And that space is very concerned about any sort of change. And there's a lot of regulations, a lot of laws, a lot of practices that go into updates to those systems. Once they're put in place, they're generally thought of as put it in place, set it, test it. If the tests check out, then lock it and don't change it again for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? And that worked back in the 60s. It kind of sort of worked back in the 80s. Even worked a little bit, 10 years ago. But today with AI, that's no longer possible. It is drastically going to change the way my industry has to respond to threats, has to respond to vulnerabilities. It's also incredibly exciting. Our industry has a ton of data, which we can't sort through. And that's for the operations side, that's for the financial side, that's for the technology side, that's for the reliability of electricity side, it's for the security side. All right, we generate tons and tons and tons of data. And there's been no way to sort through it, and AI starts to give us that. From a developer perspective, AI has the ability to help us do things tremendously faster and more cost effectively than we could before. Specific example is there's a member of my team who is working with one of our newest products, which is not available yet, which has been under development for about 4 years. It's supposed to come out at the end of the summer. And he's doing security testing on it. And we have some proprietary protocols in there that there's no open source tools, there's no tools from anybody else that we can purchase to do security testing on these protocols. So he leveraged AI to start building fuzzers in-house, to start building penetration testing tools in-house for these custom protocols. And this is still under development, so we expect him to find things. But he built tools in about 2 hours that would have taken a team of 4 people about 3 months to build, right? That's just kind of the scale that we're talking about, how much faster people can do things. And we know these tools worked because they found issues, right? We got positive results. We confirmed those results. So 2 hours to do 3 hours to do what would have been roughly about 2,000 hours of work he did in 2 hours with AI, right? That's how much we can leverage it as a developer just to do something simple like security testing, right? And that's one of the easy, simple things to do today. As AI grows and expands, we can actually build whole products in probably roughly the same amount of time. And this is very scary from an engineer perspective, right? Because am I going to have a job next year? Am I going to have a job in 5 years or 10 years? And I think we are, right? Because AI can do stuff very well once we tell it what the problem is, but we have to be able to scope the problem. We have to be able to scope the use cases and the requirements for AI to be able to build something that is actually useful, right? So I think there's still a lot of opportunity for tools out there. And one of the things that we keep reminding ourselves within my company is that AI is a tool. It is not a job replacer. It is a tool to help us do our jobs faster, to enable us to do more fun things, right? I'm sure you've all heard this in CS classes and programming classes. You've probably experienced it yourself. 90% of a project task is, or of a coding task is on 10% of the code itself, right? Because you get 90% of it done. It mostly works, and the rest of your time is spent figuring out those 1 or 2 little minor issues there at the end. Well, that's one of the things that AI could be really good at getting rid of, right? You still do 90% of the work, the same pace you've been doing it, but then that other 90% of your time that goes into 10% of the work, that's what AI could be leveraged for, right? That's going to make our jobs much more fun and fulfilling as well. So I think AI has a lot of promise, but at the same time, it's changing things so fast that it's, for my industry in particular, it's a little bit terrifying that we're even going to be able to respond to it without having security incidents pop up in the next few years.
Thanks, Nathan. I want to go to you later. Can you reflect on what AI means, what you're doing?
I think AI is really convincing. It's very good at like, yeah, you're doing the right thing. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, no, it's super secure. It's not going to be a problem. You're great. I think the thing that everyone's touched on, you have to have the fundamental knowledge. You have to know when AI is steering you in the wrong direction. You have to know how to pull the plug on that or backtrack very quickly. And AI lowers the barrier of entry a lot. AI code's cheap. I can generate 100,000 lines of code super quickly and didn't cost me much money at all. So really going back and thinking about software design, program design, thinking about what you're actually building, thinking about the security concerns of what you're building. How do you architect around that instead of just saying, hey, go forth, go do, hey, this looks good, right? Okay, cool, let's keep going. I mean, I'd love to say, let's do the AI, like something goes wrong, but yeah, that's not happening. So I think that's one of the things, and that's one of the tensions that I've seen a lot in general, is knowing when you're being led down a straight path and being able to go back and change course or course correct.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Thank you. Last word for you, Dr. Lauren.
Yeah, AI definitely has some good stuff in there. So, but if you all recall the famous quote, garbage in, garbage out, that will be closely to the same, because even if You have your AI right there, and then what are you putting in? Do you even making sure you clearly define what you're looking? If it sounds right, does that mean it's okay? But now let me stir back to the DoD. We are the DoD, we are not at the forefront. We leave you guys, the commercial, to make sure you do it. And then if it works, we take it later on and figure out the robustness to make sure it fits the military requirement. So whatever it is, we're dealing with a lot of legacy system. So if you have to deal with legacy system and you need to be right there and then making sure any code is generated, and then how are you going to make sure it fits and everything is stable? You don't. So it's good you have multiple version of the code or suggestion or idea and see how you're going to make sure it works. Yes, it will help us generate a lot of reports, but when you start looking into the technical piece, you make sure. For some reason, I appreciate AI, but optimization is not always there because the attack surface, for some reason, increase. Now, is it because the code that I'm using, it is not the professional version, or it is? I don't know. So definitely it helps, but as a cybersecurity guys, and then if we start doing some testing, and then I'm looking at the attack surface, oh, what's open? Is everything it's really tested? It worked as it should be. Does that mean AI did all the optimization for you, or you have to go back in there and do the optimization yourself? Or how are you going to get a snippet of a code and then make sure when you integration work, because we all know that you have a standalone application, it works, but when you start putting them to integrate them to others, oh boy, next thing you know, the attack surface just increase, and then you need to make sure you fix it. Is AI going to understand it that way? Because AI is learning from whom? The learning process, it has to come from somewhere. Has it done it before? Because we're making, yes, we like what it's giving us right now. It's because he learned exactly that. But is it possible for something that he hasn't learned yet? Who's going to do it? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to move to the portion where we would let students ask questions in the audience. But before that, I've got one that I would like you to quickly comment on that frequently gets asked from students in the cybersecurity industry. I know there are certifications that are valued. And so there are some students who would finish their degrees with computer science, or they could be cybersecurity majors. But other than degrees, I know the industry has certifications. For those who are entering, entry-level positions, are there certifications that you recommend that they should be focusing on? And you could do this quickly. Nathan, I can start with you. If there is a certification that comes to your mind that you recommend students pursue.
Sure. There's a bunch of certificates out there, right? Stuff from GSEC, some from ISC Squared, stuff from CompTIA. There's a bunch of stuff out there. If a resume comes across my desk for a position I have open in the cybersecurity space, that matters a little bit, right? But I don't generally look too deeply into the certifications, right? It's generally experience and who you are that I care about, right? If two candidates are equal in all respects, but one has an additional certification, you're both probably getting called for an interview, right? So that's not going to make a difference on that resume process. And when we get to the interview, when you start talking to us, it's really what you say that matters much more than what's on that resume, right? The resume gives us a starting point. It's not who you are. If you're really interested in certifications, they can help. The education for them can help with your knowledge base, can help with that baseline. And anything network related is generally pretty positive. Anything coding related is generally pretty positive. It also depends on what kind of a position you're looking for, right? You're probably not looking for a management position right outside of school, but a lot of stuff from ISC squared is more targeted towards management, right? What I care about is your ability to think, your ability to assess risks, right? And to me, that's much more important than any specific certification.
Thank you. I'll give this question to Slater if you have anything to add, and then I will let the other guys pass unless you have something new to add.
I mean, across my experience, I've interviewed people with certs, I've interviewed people without certs, I've chosen to hire people without certs, and I've chosen to reject people with certs. I will just double down on what Nathan said. Certs are nice for resume filters if people are quickly looking for like, hey, do you have this? The value of them, I tend to, maybe I'm an odd one out, but I tend to question the value of them. I do not think you have to have them to get into the industry. For context, I have 0 certs.
Okay. All right. Unless there is somebody who has got a different one, I think I have gotten the essence, and this was great answer to some of the questions some students may have. All right. I'm going to open up the time for you guys to ask. Do you have questions for the panelists? Without a hand. I'm going to.
Wow.
Oh.
Hi, my name is Brandon. This question, I guess, for Kenneth or anybody who feel free to answer, but I know, Kenneth, you mentioned this term that I've heard a lot of, like this zero trust mindset when we're talking about AI. I just kind of want to get your opinion on that, and if you think that there's a way that we can kind of address this AI question, if we can get to a point where we can regain that trust, or if it's kind of gone too far at this point.
To ask a clarifying question, do you mean us using it or us trusting its output?
Well, I guess going forward, like, can we reach a point where do we need to get to this zero trust framework to kind of put a lid on the box that we've opened?
So I don't think we're ever going to go back to a world where like AI is not a thing. And the reason why is if you look at the average person alongside what we do in computer science, and then you look at the holistic idea of like using language to communicate something. I think the really powerful thing that LLMs particularly, there might be different AI in the future, but LLMs particularly they're really good at taking human language and turning it into computer code. And I think that's a really powerful tool. As for do we trust AI? That's a really hard question. I mean, I started a whole business around it to chase this exact answer. And it really comes down to the idea of as humans, we have to own the outcomes of what these tools do. And there's not a clear existing pattern to do that. A really great example, and the reason why I think that very deeply, to put it this way, is at Cloudflare, like we were ubiquitous to a lot of pieces of the functioning world. I distinctly remember one time where I pushed wrong code and I brought down the Indian stock exchange for like 35 minutes. And there was the big outage that happened in 2023 where our core data center went down and half the internet was not working. I don't think we want more of that. Like, that's not a world we want more of. Like, software is prevalent in every part of our society. But I will say, like, for it to be mass adopted, that has to be solved. Otherwise, we will stop adopting it. It'll just kind of be a fun party trick. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
but I could talk for hours about it, so reach out afterwards.
okay.
Hey, Kenneth, another question for you. I spoke a little bit to you last time you were at Wazoo about prompt injection and sanitization of LLMs, but I was wondering more like you said yourself like LLMs are really good at turning human language into code and it's really intuitive. So when do we start considering LLMs as like a next step of innovation for computer science? Like how we had assembly and then we built compilers to do that for us. And then so like it's like it could be like another step, I guess, for the future of CS maybe or software.
I mean, I think it is. I mean, I think we're actively watching uh, a transformative moment. And over time we will see it become the next. And I have to be very pointed. I think we need a lot of innovation in the UX on how these products are deployed. Very particular around like where they're deployed, like having ChatGPT basically be a Google search equivalent or Claude be that. There's a lot of user experience innovation we need to have for it to truly feel at that level of wow, this is the next phase of computing. Um, but I do believe we're there. And that's, I mean, to think of it in a positive mindset. This is not something uh, one company or one team is going to solve. And for all of you in the room, like there's a huge opportunity to just challenge it all and ask, like, what does the next phase look like? A great example is a lot of times I don't type anymore. I'll use like Whisperflow and talk to my emails, and then I'll refine them afterwards. I do the same thing with Claude Code, but that's a user experience thing. I'm kind of duct taping two things together. Um, yeah, I think we're there. I mean, there was probably a moment when IBM watched a couple kids in Palo Alto be like, yeah, that personal computer, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. And look at the world we're at now. And I think we're the same way. It's just kind of crazy when it comes to Anthropic and OpenAI from a valuation perspective, but we're still so new. It's kind of the same with the internet.
Thank you.
Nathan, I know that you kind of mentioned it when answering the question about certifications, but what kind of what's a good area of projects to kind of focus on for resume and for skills? And this can go out to anybody else too.
I look for, I mean, if I look at a resume, I want to see something unique, right? There have been times in the past where I open a position and I get a dozen resumes. They all look exactly the same, right? Literally, they look exactly the same. 12 different people or however many went to a service. That service built the resume for them, and that service found open positions and submitted the resumes for them. Those users didn't need to do any work, right? What happens when I get one of those resumes? It instantly goes in the garbage. I ignore it. I want somebody who's going to put in the work. I want somebody who wants this position. I don't want somebody who's just going to use automated tools to find whatever job is going to land in their lap, right? So I want a resume that is unique, that looks like you put effort into it and doesn't look like everybody else is in the room. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do that. Some people put a big picture of their face on the front of the resume. Okay, that looks different. Some people fill it up as much as they possibly can, no white space at all. That's a little daunting for me to go through and read, right? What's most important is that you put things in there that tell me, one, who you are, your name, you probably don't need your birth date, but what things you're interested in, right? Things you do outside of class, whether it's kayaking or skiing or playing volleyball or baseball or whatever, right? Those tell me that you're a person, that you're going to be a team player. And then anything that is related to what you want to do, right? If it's cybersecurity, then coding if that's in your background, or RTL if that's in your background, or risk management if that's in your background, the relevant classes, the relevant things you learned, right? And also something that really does go above and beyond is send me a cover letter, right? Out of the probably 1,000 resumes that I've looked at in the last 18 years, probably 10 have had cover letters, right? And they immediately get a little bit of extra attention. Doesn't mean they're going to get an interview, but they do get extra attention when they show up. Did that help?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
I want to add something there about like going up and beyond. So when I first applied to Cloudflare, I think every one of you probably like, oh, HackerRank or LeetCode. I got one of those and absolutely bombed it. I was like, this is it. I did not do good. And when I say like going up and beyond is when I looked at that, it's for an SRE position. It was like some Python scripting thing, and I hadn't used Python in a while. I reached out to who would become my manager and said, hey, listen, I know I didn't do well, but that doesn't represent my skills. That doesn't represent what I'll bring to the team. And to put my like now founder hat on, the thing that I would recommend to all of you is like the worst thing they could do is say no or ignore it. But the worst thing you could do to yourself is not shoot your shot. So like in the cover letter, like speak from your heart. They don't have to read it. That's fine. You wrote it, but at least you're truthful. And in my experience, like when you just be honest, a lot of opportunity opens up. But Slater?
One of my biggest pain points, do not lie on your resume. Do not say you're an expert on certain things. I can tell you, I have seen resumes where I've seen like Erlang, Fortran, and trust me, I'm going to zero in on that, especially the Fortran bit. I zeroed in on that on a person in my previous company because I was like, oh, you know it. Like, let's talk all about it. Yeah, that didn't go well. That was a very quick interview. If you if you put on like C, C++, C, like 14 languages, I'm gonna probably flag it as, yeah, you've probably touched all of these. I don't think you know them. You're not comfortable in there. So just be honest. Like, no one expects you to be an expert for an entry-level job. I know the entry-level job postings say 25 years of everything and yeah. No one expects that. I'm not gonna interview you and ask you these really detailed, really complex, really hard questions. Like Nathan said, I care how you think. That's what I'm looking for. Looking for what happens when you get to somewhere that you don't know. What do you do? How do you handle it? Talk to me about it. You should go to your peers. That's okay. I have asked my interviewers questions. I have said, like, hey, I don't know about this. I know about this other piece over here. Like, that's part of it, right? So just don't get nervous or scared at all. I don't know a lot of stuff. Oh my gosh, I probably know 1% of any of. Anyway, I digress.
Sweet. Thank you.
Hey, this is James. I was wondering if we could just go around the panel and have each of you tell us something you really enjoy about your job. And maybe we could just go in the original order, Nathan, Laurent, Kenneth, and Slater.
Ooh, I'm going to put two things in there. One of them was early on in my career. SEL, working as an application engineer in our cybersecurity products group, I got to touch everything, right? And I didn't think I would have a job where I got to do everything around a product, but I got to, right? I got to do application engineering, I got to do coding, I got to do testing, I got to do marketing, I got to do sales, I got to get out to the field. I did everything, right? And that was fantastic. I didn't think I would do that outside of a startup company, but those opportunities do exist even in established companies. Today, the networks I have created, those friends I've met across the country, across the world, and traveling. right? Those are probably the best things in my job today, right? Last week I was in Linwood. I live in Vancouver, Washington. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. So just north of Portland, Oregon. Last week I was up in Linwood, Washington. 2 weeks before that I was in Chicago. And the trip before that I think was in January, where I was in Pullman, right? I've been to Saudi Arabia, I've been to Uruguay, I've been to New Zealand, I've been to Australia, I've been to Brazil, right? The traveling piece of my job has been fantastic fun, in part because it's fun to travel, it's fun to try new foods, it's fun to meet new cultures, but it's also a great way to network. And every once in a while, I'll run into somebody just randomly somewhere who I met years ago somewhere. And there's this one guy. I think one of the first conferences I went to, I think the first conference I went to was the Sam SCADA Summit in New Orleans in 2008, January 2008. And I met a guy at the hotel bar there that I ran into about 5 years later at another conference, again in the hotel bar. Right. And even though we didn't really know each other and I was really young at that point and didn't collect contact information, you still run into those people occasionally. It's not a huge world. And it's a lot of fun making those networks, making those friends and keeping in touch with them over the years. I do a much better job of keeping in touch with people today than I did 15 years ago. But that is the most fun thing about my job is the networking and the friendships that I build. Laurent?
Oh, okay. I would say, as a researcher at the DoD, it's, that little pressure where you write a paper, you do the simulation, and then you publish. Next thing you know, you start traveling and not having the issue of thinking, oh, where am I going to get the travel fund? No, that was established in such a way that even when I'm managing program, I have funding that I couldn't even spend it all when it comes to traveling. So, but usually it's always good or only good to travel, go to a conference when you're presenting. Because when you're not presenting, the fun is not the same. That's just me. So you may think differently. So you can think of I went there, but except as a DoD employee, this country that nobody wants to talk about, of course, I cannot go. Because if you say, oh, your paper is accepted in China, forget about China. You will never go to China. So not because no. DOD gonna tell you that, hey, guess what? If you go there, nobody gonna come and find you because for sure they're gonna slash you. Am I gonna test it? Definitely not. So can you imagine saying that you're going to Russia? Please don't even think about it because that conversation is not going to be fun for you because your division chief or your branch chief going to start looking at you like, what's wrong with you? So all this country you can think of, you wish you can go or you want to go, no, put slow down there. But anything else, as long as they have a conference, you put a paper and then you go. So, and the fact that when you're having collaboration with industry, so it's always fun when you start discussing a problem, a technical problem with industrial collaborator, the conversation is different because they're going straight to the point because they're making sure that, hey, you get it. And that's the good part. And of course, if you have the funding, next thing you know, oh, they're coming to make sure that the selection is favorable to them. Those type of exchange definitely good. But I would say for me, publication, at least, and I came to realize that, oh, by the way, you can go from a conference publication, a journal publication to a patent. It's a matter of making sure the idea. I have close to six patents right now as a co-inventor. Just the flavor of saying, okay, I publish a conference paper now, I'm a co-inventor. Just that by itself, no, it's not going away. It's going to be there as long as it is. Thank you.
I up or you, Slater? I think you went for the order's you, Slater.
Okay. I'll the scale at which I operate, that's a lot of fun. It presents a lot of unique challenges with it. That's probably the most exciting thing for me. I hate to give like I don't know if it's a nerdy answer or what, but like it has technical challenges, right? Um, from a security standpoint, no code's the most secure code because there's no product, there's nothing, so it's 100% secure. Or let's restrict everything. Could you imagine if you were logging into your product every minute, like going through searching something up, now log in again. Oh, do 2FA again too. Like considering all of those types of things, it's actually really fun and coming up with unique, clever solutions to go solve that. And I've never been discouraged about like trying to go solve something, invent something, and hey, if it doesn't work out, well, you learn something from it, so move on, go do something else. So that's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah. I miss that part about Cloudflare. Going from a big company to a startup where there's like 3 folks and we have like 10 customers is like a whole different thing. So I'll take it from that angle of for those of you who are thinking about starting your own thing or being a little bit entrepreneurial, I don't know how to say this other than I have the best seat in the house. I'm pretty technical. I get to help with the product. I get to definitely push myself and go learn how to fundraise and talk to people and talk to customers and figure out that little happy path of like a thing that works in the practical reality and hire people. But watching a thing go from it, and I think this is the beauty of all engineering, but this is like the last 7 months have like reminded me of it, is watching a thing go from a pure literal idea on a piece of paper to like a thing that someone else uses. I don't know how to like that is why I'm an engineer. It is the best feeling on the planet. Like, dang, that thing is real. It's buggy, it's broken, it doesn't work, it definitely could be hacked at a moment, but it's real. And I, yeah, that's the funnest part about my job right now is watching this thing become an idea to a thing, to a bigger thing. And for the advice I'll give all of you for that is like it's a heck of a time to start something. It's a great time. So that's the funnest part about my job right now.
Cool. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. I think that was a wonderful question to ask, James, to round things off. I think unless somebody has got a burning questions based on some of the answers you've heard now, I'm going to close this to a conclusion. Thank you very much, Nathan, Lawrence, Slater, and Kenneth. I learned a lot. I wrote a lot of notes. I'm sure the students have done the same. I know we have held you for a very long time, and collectively, there is a lot of wisdom that you've shared today. So thank you very much on behalf of the students who are here. We have 1 day left in our workshop, and that will be tomorrow, but you have complemented everything that has been happening throughout the week for us. So thank you very much again, and hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care,
everyone.
y'all.
Have a good summer. Bye.
All right. I think this would